Greetings, kindred. So here we are at the full moon, and the full moon will reach its peak on June 30th, 2026 at 56 minutes past midnight in the GMT time zone, at 9:56 in the AEDT time zone, and the full moon will reach its peak on June 29th at 19:56 in the EDT time zone. As the full moon reaches its peak, it will be at 11 degrees in Sagittarius. We do have a lot of energy with this moon. We can be over-optimistic or overconfident. We are kind of looking for excitement, like new ground to cover, but also very restless energy. And it's where we can be emotionally avoidant, and that can actually lead to reckless behavior. So at 11 degrees, it's all about self-mastery, this full moon. So our full moon, which is opposition the sun, as it always is at a full moon, our sun is 7 degrees in Gemini. So I really do feel that there's a lot of lessons to be learned this full moon. I feel that coming out of the other side of this, we would have all had our individual experiences where we would progress in our wisdom. And that is not just because the moon is in Sagittarius. This is me looking at the chart overall. So we do have two T-squares, a kite, and we still have a little stellium going on in Pisces, although the players change. We have Venus that's just moved into Leo, and we'll get into that in a while. And we also have the Black Moon Lilith here in Ophiuchus in opposition to Ceres, who's at 19 degrees in Taurus. So we'll start with the T-square with the Sun and Moon. They're both making a T-square towards Neptune and Saturn. So really it's all about fantasy versus reality with this T-square. And this is a very tense aspect. We can be restricted emotionally. We can be criticizing where we don't feel safe in the world. We may have a fear of rejection or abandonment or even being judged. We can often be burdened by others' responsibilities. But with this square to Neptune, it's all about our dreams, our visions, our manifestations, what we would like to see in the world. And with Saturn and Neptune now, I think it's all about finding a balance between the reality and the dream. So I feel many of us are going to be learning that kind of lesson this full moon. And then we have a T-square with Pluto, who's still in conjunction with Juno, although they're in separation. And they're both in opposition to both Mercury retrograde and Jupiter. Now, Mercury retrograde is in Gemini, but Jupiter is in Cancer. So I would say there's a lot of hidden truths that will be coming to the surface, especially with Pluto and the sign of Cancer involved here. And Gemini is quite forthright as well in speech. But also, there can be a lot of overthinking with this. There can be also some control issues. But it really is all about truth and confrontation. With the other T-square, it is all about the reality and the fantasy of any situation. So in a way, it's about our belief structures and what is the truth. And there can be a clash between those two things. So it's a very shadowy energy going on here as well. So I just feel that There's a lot of shadow energy coming to the surface to be recognized, to be healed. I feel there's a lot of self-truth, the truth of others as well, because sometimes we can be blinded um, by situations or belief structures, anything along those lines. So I really do feel that there's a lot coming out this full moon or within this full moon cycle that really is going to give us the clarity that we need for growth. And that's a mental, spiritual, emotional growth, especially with Mercury retrograding here in Gemini. And I have done an article for that, which will be linked below. But also with this T square, which is actually aimed towards Chiron, who's just entered into Aries. Now, Chiron has just reached 1 degree here. But this T square and this opposition, I mean, it's not easy, even though I say, we're being forced into development in some form or way, whether that's mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. There are situations that are going to force us to come to terms with things, come to terms with the reality, come to terms with the truth, whether that's self-truth or the truth about situations or other people even. Also, it triggers a lot of wounds that may be buried or a lot of hidden fears. With this square to Chiron, especially with Mercury and retrograding square to Chiron, we can kind of have some mental blocks as well. So maybe there's memories that have been too painful that we've put in our subconscious, and they need to come forward into the conscious mind as well to be healed. Or sometimes we can doubt certain memories because we've blocked them out for so long, so we might just get flashbacks. So I would say watch out for flashbacks from the past, especially with Mercury retrograding in Gemini anyway. Also with Mercury retrograding in Gemini, there can be miscommunications, so watch out for that, because when it comes to miscommunications, it can be a very triggering time. So with Jupiter in square to Chiron, it does amplify our emotional triggers. And it does bring to the surface any hidden insecurities. So, this can be an emotionally overwhelming time for some of us. And overall, I would say that we really need to get comfortable in our own skin this full moon. I think that should be the aim. So mirror work, positive daily affirmations, meditation, because meditations can open up doors to allow any hidden insecurities or traumas that may be coming to the surface when we meditate or do daily positivity. If we do a whole ritual of things to keep us in that spiritual mode, it makes the healing process so much more easier, so much more comfortable. There's so many therapies out there as well, alternative therapies that can be helpful as well. So if you are starting to get triggers or you're starting to get flashbacks of memories, I would definitely research what kind of healing would work for you. Some of us may already be aware. So, like I said, meditation, anything along those lines. I've just done an Epsom salt bath recently myself, because I think with the heat here in the Northern Hemisphere that we've been having lately, when the heat's so humid like that, it can actually become very stagnant. That heat wave was very stagnant energy. So we need to shift that. And we can do that with wind chimes or do a sage cleanse, whatever really works for you. So I would definitely say in the environment, like clear any stagnant energy that may have been left behind from that heat wave, because we may have more coming up yet. So before I get into the kite, I want to talk a little bit about this stellium in Pisces. So Saturn Vesta and Pallas here. Now, Saturn is at 22 degrees, and I see 22 is a master number, whereas 11 is about self mastery. 22 is really about overcoming limitations to reach a higher level of consciousness. So sometimes, and especially when it's with Saturn, it can be very restricting. And because Saturn is involved in this T square with the moon and sun, I would say like it's very emotionally restricting, self criticizing. So we just need to watch out for that. And that overall, this stellium is all about a strong commitment to something. But with Saturn involved here, we can have the discipline that we need, especially when it comes to long range goals. Now, with Saturn in conjunction to Pallas, I would say this is the master of sequences. This is where we can connect the dots. And I feel a lot of that will be going on. So all this truth, all this hidden stuff that's coming up to the surface, because Jupiter is the truth seeker. So all this self-truth or anything toxic as well, because this can be a toxic energy here with Pluto. You know, Pluto clears. There could be some revelations that take place as well this full moon. We just need to be prepared to keep an open mind, though. This stellium here really is putting the pressure on for perfectionism. It really is about high expectations as well, and dedication, especially with Vesta here. So Saturn, Vesta, and Pallas, I mean, they're very committing points in the chart. And with this Saturn conjunct Pallas, more so, it's where we are looking at more the flaws, especially flaws in ourselves or flaws in humanity in general, or even flaws in systems. So I just feel we need to be prepared for information to come out. We must keep ourselves grounded and neutral. We need to watch out for is taking on too much responsibility, because we can wear ourselves down, especially with all this emotional stuff going on. It can be emotionally exhausting, but also physically exhausting. We need to take time out to smell the roses. If we don't do that, we're not really going to achieve anything, because we're just burning ourselves out. But if we can get a structure together with time management, where we take time out for ourselves so we can come back fresh and renewed with a lot more energy and a lot more clarity, that is where we will achieve our most desired outcome. It takes a good structure. We can't be all in to the point where we think we're superhuman. And we do have the Black Moon Lilith here in opposition to Ceres. Now, this is also triggering, because this is all about our self-worth due to maybe previous abuse issues that we may have suffered, or being accused of things we haven't done, or not being believed. So this can be a very triggering energy as well, especially with Ceres in Taurus here. Can even also be about self-abuse or self-harm. So we need to watch out for that. This Kite involves our full moon in trine to the South Node, in trine to Chiron, and back to the moon. And at the top of the Kite, we have the North Node. So this Kite is actually a fire kite. So it's all about our willpower, our spiritual strength. And on top of the Kite, the North Node, it's all about our higher consciousness in Aquarius. So we do have a strong willpower, but we can lean too heavily into the past, especially with Chiron in Aries. We reflect a lot on the past. And with the South Node as well, that's all about past life karma, or even in this life karma from the past. But the South Node kind of keeps us stuck either in the past or in the present. But the North Node now in Aquarius, to me, this is the North Node saying, come on, it's time to step up a notch. I think also with this Kite, we can experience deja vu, but sometimes we can also get stuck with it's better the devil we know. Leo is a fixed sign as well, and the South Node is in Leo. When the South Node's in Leo is about changing past behavioral patterns. So I think there's a lot going on here as well with forming boundaries, trusting our gut instincts, not feeling ashamed or embarrassed about our vulnerabilities, but accepting them is healing them. And just, letting go of the old to make way for the new. And I think when we're up, we're really up, but the come down can be quite a bumpy ride. The come down really is all about the ego in Leo. It's all about our pride. So we mustn't be too prideful. We should love ourselves regardless of any flaws that we see in ourselves, because Saturn's energy here is creating, alongside Pallas, we're seeing the flaws in ourselves, we're seeing the flaws in others, but the world isn't perfect and it was never meant to be. So we need to humble ourselves when we're going through these experiences and accepting them, not as a punishment, but as a lesson for us to grow and learn. So we should never really feel ashamed of our past or for anything we feel we may have done wrong. Yeah, I feel that's kind of a theme this full moon. We also have the sun here in quincunx to Juno. So we need to watch out with, again, miscommunications, and really finding the balance between compromise and who we truly are as a person. Do we really gel with our commitments, or is it just a habit? Venus, who's just entered into Leo at 0 degrees. Leo does tend to wear their heart on their sleeve and can get carried away, with game playing. They do love a bit of drama, very passionate with Venus and Leo. We can get involved in things a little bit too deeply. And this is what we need to be aware of, not getting carried away with our imagination, because we can get into situations that we didn't really mean to get in, and then we could feel stuck there. So we need to watch out for that. Venus is in opposition to Juno. Like I said, we can get stuck into commitments that we didn't actually mean to get involved in. We just got carried away with the play acting, or we were being over idealistic. So again, we've got to be honest and truthful with ourselves or with another person or with a situation. We've got to be honest about it, what we really want from it at the end of the day. So overall, it is a very intense time, but it's also a very productive time, as long as we can stay in that spiritual bubble, but definitely have boundaries. So being a spiritual warrior, so that is where we're being led into being authentic. And the rest of the planets are saying maybe we need to deal with some old traumas or some old wounds first before we can get there. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm sending you all peace and much love. Take care.